I never thought a simple comment would shatter the calm of a quiet weekend. It was supposed to be a normal Friday night. I had plans to binge-watch a series, eat pizza, and escape the stresses of the week. But then, she said something so casually, so offhandedly, that it didn't register at first. But when the words hit my ears, I felt my heart skip a beat, my hands clam up, and a sinking feeling settle in my stomach. Honestly, I think it was a much-needed break for her, my friend was saying, holding her glass of wine, clearly enjoying the small talk we were sharing. It wasn't just about the work trip. You know, the one she mentioned last week. I paused, the chill from the air conditioning suddenly feeling colder. I wasn't sure if I had heard her right. Did she just confirm the one thing that I had only speculated on for months? What do you mean? She went on a work trip last weekend? I asked, trying to keep my voice casual, but the way my chest tightened betrayed the calm front I was attempting to maintain. It wasn't just a work trip, I knew that. The rumors had been swirling, but I had brushed them off. I didn't want to believe what was being said about her. My friend nodded, a small grin appearing on her face. Oh, you didn't know? Yeah, apparently it was a work trip, but, she trailed off, then laughed lightly. Honestly, it seemed more like an escape. You know how she's been lately. My mind raced. An escape. Of course. All this time, I had been oblivious, trusting in her words. I thought it was for her new project, the one she was so excited about, I replied, trying to steer the conversation in a safer direction. Oh, it probably was? But let's be real, we all know what she's really been doing when she's gone, my friend added with a smirk. I could feel my face flush. I knew my friend wasn't intentionally trying to hurt me, but her words were cutting into something I hadn't even realized was raw. What had she meant by what she's really been doing? I needed to know, and I needed to know now. I looked at her, my expression unreadable, fighting the urge to interrogate. But instead, I asked quietly, what are you trying to say? She set her drink down on the table and leaned in closer, lowering her voice like she was about to share a secret. I'm just saying, she's been seeing someone else, okay? Not just a work trip, if you catch my drift. The words hit me harder than anything I could have ever imagined. She had been seeing someone else. The reality of the statement hit me like a slap, and suddenly, everything felt like it was slipping from my grasp. The world around me started to blur, my thoughts spinning as the revelation sank in. How long had this been going on? Why had she never mentioned it? How had I missed the signs? I thought we had been closer than that. I stood up abruptly, the chair scraping loudly against the floor. I wasn't sure if it was the wine or the sudden wave of dizziness that hit me, but I needed to get away from the conversation. My pulse was racing, and my mind was scrambling to make sense of everything. Why hadn't she been honest with me? My friend's voice was muffled now as I walked to the window, staring out into the night. The lights of the city shimmered below, but it was as though I was staring into a void, my thoughts running wild. This wasn't just about a work trip anymore. This was about trust, betrayal, and the cold truth I wasn't ready to face. The hours felt like they dragged on in that silence, and the only thing I could hear was the pounding of my own heart. The truth had been exposed, but I wasn't ready to face it. I wasn't ready to admit how much it hurt. It felt like the ground beneath me had been ripped away, leaving me dangling in the air. I spent the night lying awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying every conversation I'd had with her over the past few months. The pieces of the puzzle started to fall into place, but they didn't make the picture any clearer. If anything, it only muddied the waters even more. I tried to justify her actions to myself. Maybe she'd needed space. Maybe there was something I didn't understand. But deep down, I knew I was lying to myself. She'd never mentioned the escape. She had never hinted at what was really going on behind closed doors. I thought back to the weekend she'd gone away. She'd been excited, sure, but there was a hesitation in her voice when she talked about it, a tightness in her smile that I hadn't picked up on. I brushed it off at the time, thinking she was just tired. But now, I could see it clearly, her quiet detachment, the way she dodged certain questions, the way she'd been keeping her distance. She wasn't just working on a project. She was hiding something. I picked up my phone, dialing her number instinctively, but the call went straight to voicemail. She was avoiding me, I realized. The truth had been laid bare, and now she was running from it. I could feel a surge of anger rise in me, mixed with the sting of betrayal. How could she do this? How could she keep something so big from me? I needed answers. I needed to hear it from her. No more evasions, no more half-truths. If she had been seeing someone else, she owed me the decency of telling me the truth. I had to know everything. The pain I was feeling was unbearable, but the thought of being kept in the dark was worse. It wasn't just about the relationship anymore. It was about everything that had come before, the trust, the intimacy, the promises that we'd made to each other. What did those words even mean now? Had it all been a lie? Was this what it had always been? I couldn't sleep, couldn't focus. The question kept replaying in my mind, why didn't she tell me? I wasn't even angry at the other person, it was her silence that burned me the most. The woman I thought I knew, the one I had trusted, had turned into someone unrecognizable. She had kept her secrets hidden well, and it was only now that they had all come tumbling out. I started scrolling through her social media, each post a reminder of the mask she had worn. She'd shared her life with everyone else, but not with me. Not with the one person who had truly believed in her. I couldn't help but feel like a fool. As the hours passed, I tried to distract myself. I went for a run, trying to clear my head, but it didn't work. The thoughts kept coming back, crashing over me in waves. It was like the truth had broken something inside of me, and no matter how hard I tried to piece it back together, I couldn't make sense of it. By the time I got home, the frustration had turned into desperation. I couldn't wait any longer. I needed to confront her. I couldn't keep living in this limbo, constantly questioning everything I thought I knew. I sent her a message, the words typed out with trembling hands, before I could change my mind. I need to talk. Call me. It felt like a hollow plea, a cry for answers that I wasn't sure I'd ever get. But I had to try. I had to find out why this had happened, why she'd chosen to hide the truth from me. The phone buzzed a few minutes later, and my heart skipped. It was her. I hesitated for a moment, unsure if I was ready to hear what she had to say. But then I answered, my voice strained with the mix of anger and hurt I felt inside. Why didn't you tell me? I asked before she could even speak, my words sharp, cutting through the silence. There was a long pause on the other end of the line, and I could hear her breathing. Then, she finally spoke, her voice softer than I expected. I didn't want to hurt you, she said, her words almost whispering. I swallowed hard, feeling a lump rise in my throat. You didn't want to hurt me? Then why did you lie? Why did you let me believe we were fine? The pain in my voice was unmistakable, and I could hear the regret in hers. I never meant for it to go this far, she said, her voice shaking. But I didn't know how to tell you. I didn't know how to say it. My anger flared again, but it wasn't enough to mask the ache in my chest. I didn't know if I was ready to hear the rest of her explanation, but I had no choice now. Tell me everything, I demanded, my words more a plea than an order. Her silence on the other end of the line hung like a thick fog. I could feel the weight of her hesitation pressing in from all sides, suffocating the air around me. My hands gripped the phone so tightly that my knuckles were white. She had been avoiding me for days, and now, she wanted to hide behind her excuses. But I wasn't going to let her get away with it. I need to know what happened, I said, my voice barely holding together. I can't keep doing this. I can't keep living with this question hanging over me. She exhaled deeply, the sound shaky. I was afraid, she began, afraid of losing you. Afraid of how you'd react, of how it would change things between us. I closed my eyes, the sting of her words cutting deeper than I expected. You should have trusted me enough to tell me. You should have known I wouldn't just walk away. But this is betrayal. You've taken my trust and shattered it without a second thought. She gasped, and I could hear her struggling to speak. It wasn't like that, I swear. I didn't want to hurt you. I thought I could fix it. I thought it was something I could keep to myself, but I couldn't. I can't keep living in two worlds anymore. What are you talking about? I asked, the confusion making my head spin. What do you mean, two worlds? What the hell has been going on? She paused again, her breath catching in her throat. I met someone who made me feel alive again. Someone who made me feel like I was more than just the girl you'd fallen in love with. My stomach dropped. There it was. The words I had been dreading. The truth finally spilling out of her mouth, unrestrained, raw, and painful. She wasn't just emotionally checked out, she had found someone else. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. The room around me seemed to spin as her confession sank in. So all those times you said you were working late or away on a trip, you were with him? I asked, barely able to keep the bitterness from my voice. She didn't answer right away, and when she finally spoke, her voice was small, almost apologetic. Yes. I'm sorry. I didn't know how to tell you. I thought I could keep it under control. I thought it was just a phase. A phase. I repeated, the word tasting like ash in my mouth. You've been seeing someone else, and you think this was just a phase? What did you think was going to happen? Did you think I wouldn't find out? I thought I could fix things, she said again, her voice breaking. But I wasn't being fair to either of you. I wasn't being fair to myself. I didn't want to hurt you, but I've hurt you more by keeping all of this inside. I could hear the regret in her voice now, but it didn't matter. Nothing she said could undo the damage. I could feel my heart shattering, piece by piece, as each of her words drove deeper into the wound she had already inflicted. It wasn't just the fact that she had cheated, it was the fact that she had hidden it from me, that she had lied to my face, and worse, she had manipulated me into thinking everything was fine. You didn't even try to tell me the truth, I said, my voice rising in frustration. You just kept pretending, kept playing me for a fool. I wasn't pretending, she protested quickly, but I could hear the shakiness in her voice. I just didn't know what to do. I didn't want to lose you, but I couldn't stop myself from seeing him. And now? I asked, barely able to contain the anger that bubbled to the surface. Now that I know? What do you expect me to do with all of this? You can't just break my heart and expect me to just forgive you. She was silent for a moment, and I could feel the weight of her guilt on the other side of the phone. I don't expect forgiveness, she whispered. I just needed to be honest with you. I don't know where we go from here, but I'm sorry. I never wanted to hurt you. Her apology felt hollow. Words without weight. It was too little, too late. She had already shattered everything. Her apology couldn't fix the broken pieces of trust between us. It couldn't take back the lies, the secrets, the betrayal. I could feel the tears threatening to rise, but I held them back, refusing to let her see how deeply her actions had cut me. Instead, I set my jaw, trying to maintain some semblance of composure. I don't know if I can even look at you the same way after this, I told her, my voice barely above a whisper. I understand, she said quietly. I didn't expect you to. I never wanted to destroy everything we had. But I've already done that, haven't I? There was nothing left to say. No more words could undo the damage. I had already made my decision. I need space, I said, cutting the conversation short. I need time to think. Don't contact me again unless you're ready to tell me everything, truly everything. And with that, I hung up. The silence in the room was deafening, and I sank to the floor, trying to process the weight of what had just happened. She had shattered everything. And as much as I wanted to believe it could be fixed, I knew deep down that it couldn't. I wasn't sure what would happen next or if there was even a way back from this. But one thing was certain, I was done living in the dark. I needed the truth, and I needed to rebuild from the wreckage. The days that followed felt like a blur. I moved through them in a haze, the weight of what I'd learned constantly pressing down on me. I could barely look at my phone without feeling a knot in my stomach, remembering the last conversation we had. Her apology, her confession, echoed in my mind, but it didn't offer the relief I had hoped for. I didn't know what I expected: closure, understanding, a way forward. But instead, it only left me with more questions, more uncertainty. I avoided my friends for a few days. I wasn't ready to talk to them about what had happened. They had always been supportive of my relationship, and now, I didn't know how to explain this sudden unraveling of everything they thought they knew. It felt like they'd been caught in the crossfire of something that wasn't their fault, but now I had to wear the scar of it. I wasn't sure I could answer their questions. I wasn't even sure I had answers myself. The pain was strange. It wasn't just the sting of betrayal or the anger bubbling beneath my skin, it was the loss. The loss of someone I thought I knew, someone I had trusted with every part of myself. The person I had believed in was suddenly a stranger. And that, more than anything, hurt. I spent the next few days isolating myself, trying to make sense of everything. I couldn't bear to see her. I couldn't bear to hear her voice again, especially after everything she had told me. It wasn't just the affair, it was everything she had kept hidden from me. All the small lies, all the things she thought I would never find out. How could I ever trust her again? I walked around in a cloud, trying to distract myself from the thoughts that consumed me. I went for long runs, hoping the physical exertion would push out the emotional weight that kept threatening to pull me under. But no matter how far I ran, no matter how much I tried to bury it, the truth remained. One evening, I found myself sitting alone in a dimly lit cafe, the soft hum of conversation around me a distant buzz. I was scrolling through my phone, checking social media mindlessly, when something caught my eye. It was a picture of her. She was standing with him, the other guy, her smile wide, her eyes sparkling. They looked happy. And in that moment, the air in the cafe seemed to grow thick, and I felt my chest tighten. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even surprised. But the image hit me like a punch to the gut. She had moved on. She had already moved on, and here I was, still drowning in the wreckage of a relationship I thought was solid. She looked so carefree, so different than the woman I had known. And I couldn't help but wonder how long this had been going on, how long she had been hiding this other life from me. The tears came suddenly, and I didn't fight them. It wasn't just about the affair anymore. It was about everything we had built, everything I thought we had shared. And now, in the blink of an eye, it was all gone. The life I had envisioned, together with her, had slipped away, and I couldn't stop it. I set my phone down on the table, the picture still haunting me in the periphery. I felt empty, like a part of me had been ripped out and left to bleed. The silence of the cafe surrounded me, but it didn't comfort me. There was no comfort to be found in any of this. I had loved her with everything I had, and now she was gone. I left the cafe and walked aimlessly down the street, not really caring where I was going. My mind was clouded with so many emotions, anger, sadness, confusion. But most of all, there was a hollow ache in my chest. I had trusted her. I had believed in her. And now, nothing felt real. I found myself at a park, sitting on a bench, watching the world go by. People passed by without a second glance, living their lives, unaware of the storm that had just shattered mine. I wanted to scream, to let it all out, but I couldn't. I couldn't find the words to express the pain that gnawed at me. I had spent so many years believing in something that was never as solid as I thought. It was an illusion, a lie that I had built in my own mind. The realization was too much to bear. And yet, in that moment, sitting alone on that bench, I knew something had to change. I couldn't keep carrying this weight, this resentment. I couldn't keep holding on to the ghost of the person I thought she was. If I was going to survive this, I had to let go. I had to accept that everything was different now, that she was gone, and that maybe, just maybe, I could start to rebuild myself, piece by piece. I didn't know how long I sat there, but eventually, the sun began to set, casting a soft orange glow across the sky. The day was coming to an end, and so was this chapter of my life. It wasn't a happy ending, and it wasn't a clean one. But it was an ending nonetheless. I stood up from the bench, taking one last look around the park. Then I turned, and with a heavy heart, I began to walk away. There was nothing more to do now except move forward. The weeks that followed felt like a blur of emotional turbulence. Every day, I woke up and faced the reality of what had happened, but it didn't get any easier. There were moments when I thought I was okay, when the anger faded a little, when the sadness wasn't quite as sharp, but then something would trigger it. A song we used to listen to together, a place we'd gone to on our first date, or even just a passing thought about how I thought we'd spend forever together. It all came rushing back. I still hadn't seen her. Not since that phone call. She had tried to reach out a few times, texts, calls, and even messages on social media, but I had ignored them. I wasn't ready. I wasn't sure if I would ever be. Part of me wanted to hear her out, wanted to listen to her try to explain herself, but another part of me knew that the explanations wouldn't matter. The damage had already been done, and no amount of words would undo what had been broken. The hardest part was seeing her move on so easily. At least, it seemed that way. I wasn't sure if that was what really hurt the most, the fact that she had found someone else so quickly, or the fact that she had never once tried to fight for what we had. The love I thought we shared seemed like a distant memory now, like something I had dreamed up, only to wake up and find out it was never real. I tried to immerse myself in my own life again, focusing on my work, spending time with friends, rediscovering things I had neglected. But there were moments, quiet moments, when everything would come crashing down on me. The loneliness would creep in, the doubt, the sense of betrayal. I would be sitting in a room full of people, and yet feel so alone, so abandoned. It wasn't just the romantic loss, it was the loss of a partner, a confidant, someone I had shared my life with. I had invested so much, and in return, I had been given nothing but lies. One night, as I was sitting at home, scrolling through old photos, a message from her popped up on my phone. I had expected it, hadn't I? Still, seeing her name made my stomach twist. I didn't open it right away. Instead, I just stared at the screen, debating with myself. Finally, I tapped the message open. "I miss you," it read. "I don't expect forgiveness, but I want you to know how sorry I am. I wish I could take back the hurt I caused. I never meant to betray you. I just didn't know what to do." The words stung. They didn't make the hurt go away. They didn't heal the broken parts of me. They were just words, empty words, meaningless words, spoken too late. I felt my emotions surge again, the anger and pain mixing together in a storm inside me. How could she say that? How could she miss me now, when it had been her choice to walk away, to hide things from me, to tear everything apart? I sat there for a long time, just staring at her message, feeling the weight of the past few weeks press down on me. I had to admit, there was a part of me that still cared. A part of me that wanted to believe in her words, that wanted to believe there was some truth to the apology. But I had to be honest with myself. I had to face the reality of what had happened. And the reality was that she had hurt me, and no amount of regret could change that. I deleted the message, and I felt a strange sense of finality in doing so. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I was starting to let go. Letting go of her. Letting go of the pain. Letting go of the life I had imagined. The hardest thing was admitting that I wasn't just grieving the loss of her, I was grieving the loss of the person I thought I was. The person I had been in that relationship. I had built so much of my identity around her, around the idea of us. But now, that person was gone. And I had to figure out who I was without her. It wasn't easy. It wasn't quick. But over time, I began to heal. Slowly, piece by piece, I started to rebuild myself. I surrounded myself with people who cared about me, friends, family, even new faces, and I began to find joy in things again. Things I had forgotten about. Things that didn't involve her. It wasn't that I had forgiven her. I don't know if I ever would. It wasn't about forgiveness anymore. It was about moving on, about finding my own path again. And, eventually, I did. As the months passed, I started to look at my life with a new perspective. It wasn't perfect, but it was mine. I wasn't going to let the pain of the past define me. I wasn't going to let her mistakes control my future. The woman who had once meant everything to me was just a chapter in my story now. A chapter that had ended in a way I hadn't expected, but a chapter nonetheless. I wasn't the same person I had been when I first met her. I was stronger, more resilient, more aware of my own worth. I had learned the hard way that trust was fragile, that love was not something to be taken for granted. But I had also learned that I could survive the storm, that I could come out the other side and still find light. In the end, that was what mattered. Not her, not the lies, not the pain. What mattered was that I had found my way back to myself. And that was something no one could ever take away.